Marion, North Carolina, a small town in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the Catawba River cuts through the eastern edge of the city. On June 9, 2025, 41-year-old Stephen Michael Blaylock was last seen at a homeless encampment on Bambi Drive in East Marion. Blaylock is an amputee. He relies on an electric wheelchair to move. That wheelchair was found at the encampment. Stephen Blaylock was not. Days passed before anyone reported him missing. This episode, we go inside his disappearance. We sit down with the people who knew him. We break down the numbers behind his disappearance, and we show you exactly how the Find Me project is working this from the inside. This is the Find Me project, and this is the case of Stephen Michael Blaylock.
A mission with purpose to find the missing using the power of social networking and cutting-edge technology. We're military veterans, technologists, scuba divers, and relentless seekers. From deep forests to sunken vehicles, from silence to signal, every clue matters. If you've ever felt the call to stand for something greater, this is your moment. This is the Find Me project.
We're going to start by talking about Stephen's disappearance timeline. What we know is that Stephen was last seen on June 9th, 2025 at a homeless encampment on Bambi Drive, which is in East Marion, North Carolina. The specific location here is going to be Bambi Drive and Ridge Road. I really want to bring everybody's attention in to this specific location. If you live in the area or you have traveled through it, or maybe you know somebody that lives here, Bambi Drive and Ridge Road on June 9th, 2025. That is when Stephen was last seen at this homeless encampment. Now, what we know is that on June 25th, the Marion County Sheriff's Office issues a missing person advisory for Stephen Blaylock. What we see is a 16-day gap from the date of last contact to this missing person advisory. A lot can happen in 16 days, and we just don't have the answers on exactly what did happen. Now, what we do know is that Stephen's electric wheelchair was found at the homeless encampment, and he was not. That's a major red flag for me because Stephen is an amputee. He relies on that wheelchair. He's dependent on that wheelchair. So the fact that it was found at this homeless encampment where he was staying and he was not definitely draws some red flags, not only for me, but for our internal team, which is our Guardian Angel Task Force. Now, we have received some information that about a week prior to June 9th, so around June 3rd, somebody may have seen Stephen in the area of what I believe is pronounced Forsyth Street in Marion, North Carolina. This was shared to us in the context that this is an area that homeless people are known to frequent. Again, we think that's important information to share with everybody. So if you travel through this area, you hang out here yourself, if you have any information at all, it may just be the piece to the puzzle that we need to help bring resolution to Stephen's family. So please share that with us. We have all the information and different ways that you can contact us in today's show notes, and we will describe how you can do that at the very end of today's conversation as well. Now, one of the things that we were able to do is actually run Stephen's case through a probability model that weighs every piece of evidence mathematically. This, you've seen this showcased in recent past. It utilizes the Bayesian predictive model and several other models and algorithms that we developed in-house. Basically, what we do is every action, every timeline item, if we can match that up against a data source that is research and science backed, preferably with big data, then those items become an evidence card. So with Stephen's case, we have a total of 17 evidence cards. And when we look at if in the scenario or context, Stephen had no history of going missing or disappearing, so no repetitive incidents where he went missing, there is a 1 in 134,408,602 probability that Stephen vanished under voluntary means. What that means is there's an overwhelming potential that he would have disappeared under involuntary means. Now, when I say involuntary, that doesn't mean something malicious like murder, although it could. It also could come into play with a few different examples. I'm going to give you two. The first example is, let's say that you have a person that's out with a group of friends. They're having fun. They're partying. They're using drugs or alcohol. A person overdoses. And even though the people apply medical aid, the person passes away. And the people that are with this person feel like if they call 911, they're going to get in trouble. So they decide not to do that and instead to conceal the person's body. That's an example of an involuntary method. The second could be an accident, whether you're driving in a vehicle or you're a passenger in a vehicle and you veer off the road and you're on land or you're in water and that vehicle and people have not been discovered yet. That's another example. Now, when we look at the possibility of all the evidence cards occurring by independent chance that led to a voluntary departure, in that scenario, it becomes a 1 in 295 trillion possibility that all of those events, all of those actions would have happened at the same time or in sequence that would have led to a voluntary departure. It's just not as likely. So what you see here is that mathematics and the data, historical data, and situations that we can account for in this model tell us that there's a higher probability of an involuntary departure. Now, we would not be doing due diligence if we didn't bounce this up against, well, what if Stephen had a history of repetitive missing person reports being filed or disappearing multiple times for an extended period? So when we run those same exact evidence cards, but account for a repetitive situation where this happens quite frequently, we see that the probability of a voluntary disappearance is 1 in 13.4 million. So just to compare those two, when we go back and look at, okay, if Stephen had no history of repetitive missing person reports being filed, that's a 1 in a 134.4 million probability. If there is a history, it drops down to 1 in 13.4. 13.4 million is still a very big number as it relates to it telling us that this likely is not a voluntary disappearance and that it does lean more toward an involuntary disappearance. Hello, everybody. I just want to take a moment and pause from today's show to say thank you for tuning in. We have now been able to grow our community to over 50,000 people, and that's amazing. It helps us with our mission and purpose, which is to find missing people by leveraging advanced technology, social networking, and the skill set of elite professionals. Now, if you are interested in helping to support us, there's a few different ways that you can get involved. The first is simply by liking, following, subscribing, giving us a review for the podcast. It really does help. The second, you can join our Guardian Angel Task Force and help us review missing person cases, help us gather open source intelligence, or even help us conduct search and recovery operations, whether it's land or water based. And then another option is that you can help with funding. You can make a one-time or reoccurring donation in any amount, or you can purchase any of our merch, which does support all of our missions in helping to find missing people. Let's get back to today's episode for Stephen Michael Blaylock. Now, this model that I just talked to you about, we're going to be sure, or at least we're going to try to put it on Stephen's case blog, which will be available on our website, thefindmeproject.com. We're going to have that link in the show notes. What I ask is that you actually go to the case blog, take a look at this model, manipulate it. What you'll have access to do is actually see the evidence cards. You'll be able to look at the data sources that we're pulling from, and you'll be able to either add or subtract the evidence cards and see how that plays into the overall probability. We want your feedback. We want your opinions. So please give it to us. Don't be shy. This is really our form of doing peer review. So it is important that that we have some people actually go out and look at this model. Now, when we first received the missing person referral for Stephen's case, it came to us from a very close friend and a family member. And one of the very first things that we do is we take all of the preliminary information and we run it through Global Search, which is our advanced open source intelligence platform that we developed in-house. And what Global Search does is it will go out and search the world of IoT, or Internet of Things, surface web, deep web, dark web. It's going to try to gather as much data as it possibly can for Stephen. Now, initially, we throttle some of the compute capability back because we're just focusing on preliminary information. And then as time goes on, as we have more information or intelligence identified or provided to us, that compute power will slowly start to be released, and it will go out and perform even more enhanced searches. As that data comes back in, we are congesting it as part of Nexus Investigative Intelligence, another homegrown software that we built to allow us to identify, visualize the data points or data nodes related to Stephen's missing person case. We can also apply artificial intelligence and machine learning models to better understand and analyze all of the data. I often talk about this, but when you look at a missing person case, you have so much data and information that is coming in from all over the place. For a single human brain, or even a team of human brains, it's almost impossible to analyze, interpret, and understand all of that data. It's just too hard, to be honest with you. So that's where, if we can use technology, this is a great example of how artificial intelligence can be used for a missing person case. Now, in addition to that, we're also taking the data as it comes in, and we're cross-referencing some of our other databases and systems. So, for example, we're taking Stephen's information and checking any known human or sex trafficking location to see if any information or any of his information exists in these locations. As you can imagine, for Stephen's case, it does not. We have no indication of that whatsoever. But as our system continues to gather information, so every time it gets a new piece of data, it's going to bring that back to square one, and it's going to refine the search query and start all over again, accounting for that new data. And it will also check those databases. So it's continuously evolving. If the system is able to identify a relationship with somebody that we didn't initially know, and they're able to pull in a phone number or an email or an IP or many other versions of contact data, that's what we're going to search against. And in some situations, that's how we actually are able to identify a positive match within some of those trafficking databases. So that is what's going to happen. Something else that we also do, and this is actually already completed for Stephen's case, is that we will have our internal team members join us. We will take a look at our roster, reach out to some of the team members, and get their initial thoughts. Oftentimes, that almost always includes some type of forensic or behavioral profiling. So that has already completed with Stephen's case. we're not going to share that right now because we just don't think it is the right time to do that. We did think about actually having some of those team members on and, having them record here with us. But again, we just don't feel like it's the right time to do that as we don't have enough information about Stephen Blaylock's disappearance at this time. So maybe that's something we'll do with some of our other cases. Something else that we also like to do is interface with locals, people who are in the community. They are very familiar with the location. They know certain areas that we may need to take a look at. So we actually had an opportunity to link up with Madeline. She has done amazing. She has done an amazing job so far in driving awareness and visibility to Stephen's missing person case. So listen to Madeline and my conversation that we had.
My name is Madeline Lowry. I am in Burke County, North Carolina, Drexel. I'm from McDowell County. I'm 29 years old. My entire family has lived in or around the area of where Stephen has been missing from.
Now, you grew up in Marion, North Carolina, correct?
I grew up in Marion. We moved around a bit until I was about 10 years old, but then we moved back, which is where my parents are from, and have been there except for the last 3-4 years we moved to Burke County, which is right adjacent to McDowell County.
Thinking back to your time spent in Marion, North Carolina, how did it feel growing up in that area?
It's a poor area. It's riddled with drugs, and I've dealt with that within my own family. A little bit of there's like there's the west side and there's the east side of McDowell County, and they're vastly different in terms of the people, the landscape, but McDowell County is a place where you can thrive. If you're homeless, if you're addicted to drugs, there's a place for you in McDowell County. And that's not to say anything bad about those types of people, because again, that's something that I have dealt with personally, but it's outside looking in, you may not be able to see how impoverished some people live there, but they do.
Now, you talked about there being a difference, east side, west side.
Yeah.
When you think about the area where Stephen was last seen at or went missing from, what side of that was he located on?
That's the east side. Yeah, that's the east side.
Is that the worst side?
It's worse than the west side. In the east side, you have areas like Clinchfield, Stumptown, which don't have their own post office box. They're actually considered the city of Marion. But these are like neighborhoods that everybody knows them by that name, Clinchfield, Stumptown. And then you go a little bit farther east. I want to say east. In my mind, I think it's east, is Nebo. That's where you have, that's the only other town next to Marion where there's actually like a post office. But within Nebo is Desertsville. This is all the area of McDowell County that's considered the east side. And it's different from the west side because the west side connects to Asheville. So you're getting, and Asheville, is a big city in North Carolina. So you're getting closer to like where the other half live when you're on the west side of McDowell County.
Now, you spoke earlier about drugs in Marion or McDowell County. How bad is the drug problem?
It's bad. Before 2023, 2024, it was mainly methamphetamine. But fentanyl has its way in. There's been, not as much as you would see in a big city. But for the small town that we have, there have been too many overdoses. There are like young children that are already addicted to hard drugs. And it flourishes in our county because we do have areas like the east side where like there are people, I have people in my family that don't even live in houses. They live in shacks. And that's normal. That's normal down here to have it. Other people would look at it and say, this is crazy that people live like this, but they do. And everybody, whether they're addicted or have been addicted in the past, they have somebody or multiple people in their family that are addicts or currently addicted or have overdosed. And it touches everybody within the county.
Now, based upon the preliminary information that we have, that's all that I'm going to reference, as this is going to be a multi-phase process in reviewing Stephen's missing person case. But some of the information indicates that he frequented an area called 4th Street in Marion. Okay, Forsyth. Say that again?
Forsyth,
okay.
Forsythe.
Okay, that makes sense because when I looked at it, I said, that is not the typical way to spell fourth.
Yeah.
And, okay, so say it one more time for me.
Forsyth.
Okay, yeah, so we have some information that he frequented that street. And when you look at the timeline, going back to June 3rd, there was a possible sighting where somebody may have seen Stephen on that particular street. And, he may have appeared incoherent. There was even some references that he was possibly falling out of his wheelchair. So when we think about that general location, is that a area that is known for problems or for a high level of drugs?
Okay, so Forsyth Street, there's two different sides. There is a side that is paved and is is residential. You can access Forsyth from two different areas. The other half of Forsyth is gravel. There's still houses and stuff there. So I'm very familiar with the paved side of Forsyth, but from what I understand, this is closer to the gravel side. So Forsyth is right in the middle of Clinchfield, which is right in that east side of Marion. So there's a lot of foot traffic. I'm not familiar with the homeless encampment that has been referenced that he was last seen near, but it doesn't surprise me at all that there is one in that area. Because from Forsyth Street, being in Clinchfield, you can access the city of Marion. It's also right at the edge. Any people that are from like the Nebo area can access it on foot. So it doesn't surprise me at all that there is a homeless encampment in that area.
So, with your understanding of any of the local area, whether it's that street or, I know you said you're not familiar with that homeless encampment, but let's just say the general area. Mm-hmm. When we think about the wooded area that surrounds any of these locations, if we think about any areas of water, such as lakes, ponds, is there anywhere that you can think of that would be beneficial for our team to focus in on?
There is an unmanned, this is not something that I've seen myself and I wasn't aware of before this case, but there is an unmanned water treatment plant right in that area within, I've seen a screenshot of the Google Maps of where it is in relation to the homeless encampment, and it is within walking distance. I'm not sure if it's surrounded by woods, but it is right in the area as far as bodies of water they said that it was a unmanned water treatment plant. So I have personally a hard time trying to think of what that looks like, and I may even be familiar with it and not realize it, but I do know that is very, very close to the area.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good to know. Our profilers, when we look at the preliminary information, whether you want to say it's voluntary or involuntary with malicious intent, they feel because of his wheelchair being left behind and all the other information that there is a very high probability with either direction you go that the search radius is going to be roughly anywhere between 300 to 500 yards around that encampment. The outlier here is that if a vehicle was involved, that obviously changes the search area. All right, so as you can see, that was a great conversation we had with Madeline. Again, I just want to say thank you very much to Madeline and anybody else that we had an opportunity to talk with as our team continues to review Stephen Blaylock's missing person case. So what's next? Well, coming up here, Stephen Michael Blaylock's case will be presented to our internal team known as our Guardian Angel Task Force. And that team represents elite practitioners from their respective fields. It also includes everyday people that have a very unique and exceptional skill set in helping to find missing people. So Stephen's case will be presented during our monthly meeting, and we are going to get everybody's feedback and thoughts. The intelligence gathering process will continue. That's really an autonomous process that takes place. And as information comes in, it'll be analyzed, factored into everything that we do. All of that information will be compiled or formatted into a professional-looking report. It will be shared with the respective law enforcement agencies that are handling Stephen's disappearance, and it will also be shared with the family, depending upon what that information is. We don't want to just share all of the information because of the sensitive nature of missing person cases. We do everything we can to make sure that we perform due diligence on information as it is gathered. So that way we're not giving the family misinformation or information that we're not 100% sure on. So that will be taking place. The goal here is to gather enough information where we have actionable intelligence that will allow us to perform a land or water-based search. That is something that we very much want to do for Stephen's case. That may even involve having some of our advanced technology, our drones, the LiDAR systems, individual teams on the ground, bringing out our sonar and diving capabilities. This is something that we want to do. We have the ability to do, and it is on standby. We don't like to just go out to random places and do this. So we want to be very precise with everything that we do. So that's why we need actionable intelligence. So if anybody is listening to this and you either have direct information about Stephen's disappearance, you may have overheard somebody talking, maybe you were in the area of Marion, North Carolina between June 9th, 2025 and June 25th, 2025, and you saw something that just didn't look right. And at the time, you didn't really think much of it. But now that you're listening or watching to this episode, you think, well, wait a minute, maybe I did see or maybe I did hear something. Please provide that to us. That could be the piece to the puzzle that we're looking for that could solve or provide resolution to this entire puzzle. So there's a few different ways that you can go about submitting that information or getting it to us. All of that is going to be in the show notes, but I'm going to run through those right now. And you can remain anonymous throughout this entire process as well. So the first option you have is to go to our website and use the submit a tip feature. That's going to be the findmeproject.com. Submit a tip and you can remain anonymous. The second option is that you can send us an encrypted message on Signal. Our username or handle is the findmeproject.22, all one word across the board there. So the findmeproject.22. You can send us an email at find@thefindmeproject.com or send us a message on any social media platform that we are on. You can also send that information on over to the Marion County Sheriff's Office. We're going to have all of that information in the show notes. I want to sincerely thank you for tuning in to Stephen Michael Blaylock's missing person case, and we will see you on the next episode.
Left the light on by the window like I always do, just in case tonight's the night you finally come walking through. I replay our last conversation, searching for a sign. Every stranger's face I see, for a second I think it's thine. Where did you go? Just an echo in the silence. I'm holding out hope against the odds, against the science. I'll keep a space for you right here inside me. Ooh. They say that time's a healer, but the clock just stands so still. Every sunrise is a question mark upon a lonely hill. Where did you go? Just an echo in the silence. I'm holding out hope against the odds, against the science. I keep a space for you right here inside.